Here.
And Mayor Christie.
Here. Up first, if you could please stand for the invocation being done by Bill Heller of the Hemet-Seneceno Interfaith Council, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Linda Kuma. Is Bill here?
Was he under there? No, he was not under there, right. But I did transfer him.
Well, since Bill's not here, I guess I will open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you and we ask that you give us guidance and get us through this meeting as we conduct the business of the city. We ask that you give us the opportunity to hear our constituents and listen to what they have to say. And as we get through our city business, we ask that you bless our community, bless our county, and bless our state and our country, Lord. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the salute to our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay. Up next, City Attorney closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council had two closed sessions tonight. They were both items of anticipated or potential litigation. We completed both of those. One item, there was no reportable action. The second item, I've been asked to state that the City Attorney and the Police Chief briefed the Council with regard to liability aspects of compliance and non-compliance with Senate Bill 54. There was no reportable action on that item out of closed session, however. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. And with that direction, immigration is a federal issue, and so it is the commitment of this council to enforce the law, and because we are a law-abiding city. And so with that, we're going to schedule a future work study. We'll get a work study scheduled with the clerk for a future agenda item to get that on the agenda so that we can have an open dialogue about SB 54. All right, moving along, we have a presentation for the proclaiming that April 30th is Arbor Day. So is there somebody here? Chris, is that going to be you? Okay, so April 30th, 2018, proclamation of the City of Hemet. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees, and this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And trees in our cities increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Michael Percival, Mayor of the City of Hemet, here do by proclaim Monday, April 30th as Arbor Day 2018. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Drew. Is this on? Okay. Yes, so as you know, every year we do proclaim Arbor Day in our city, and this year on the 30th, on Monday, we are going to be planting a jacaranda tree in the Stony Mountain Park. We'll actually be holding our park commission meeting at the park, which will be lovely, so hopefully we get some great weather, not too hot, not too cold. And so anybody that wants to join us out there, feel free. Thank you very much, and we'll make sure we get some pictures back to you of that tree now and into the future. So,
Very cool.
Thanks.
So I mentioned to you probably a couple weeks ago when I went to Arizona to visit my dad. While I was there, I actually planted 2 trees in his yard. And then today I noticed that along Johnston Avenue, just west or just east of Sanderson, that there was probably at least 20 trees that have been planted.
Correct. We did go through, as you know, they do age out. A long time ago, we had many trees that were probably planted not in the right spots or not the right species for the right spots, so some of them didn't do well. So yes, we did from Sanderson to Kirby on Johnston there. We're redoing the planter area, trees included. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, moving along. City council business. Up next is the consent calendar. Consent calendar consists of items which are typically routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion of the council unless an item is pulled. Gabriella, has anybody pulled any items from the consent from the public? Is there any staff that would like to pull? Item 5? Okay, we'll pull item 5. Okay. Anybody from staff wishing to pull anything? Anybody from council?
9, 10, and 11.
9, 10, and 11. Anyone else? 13? 13. And then number 5. Okay. Let's start with number 5, Marie McDonald. You wanted to pull number 5? No? Okay. Number 5 is back on. Okay. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes. Did you want to speak about that? Oh, 5's coming back off.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council, communications from the public provides the City Council with the issues that concern the public. However, ever since the council voted to reduce the minutes of the meeting to action minutes, both the council and our community have lost an important method of communicating with each other about these concerns. I ask the council to please put the issue of how the minutes of the council meetings will be reported in the future on the agenda of the next meeting so there can be a reconsideration of this issue. If the minutes provide a short description of the issue being brought before the council by the community, and if the city manager responds to the community by having the appropriate city department or the council itself schedule a response to the reported concern at the next council meeting, there can be a fruitful exchange on the subject that won't be lost out in the ether somewhere. Hopefully, we will see this request appear on the agenda of the next council meeting.
Thank you, Marie. One of the things I do want to point out on the comments that you make is that if you can recall when we approved to bring action minutes, that part of that was to make the recording of the meeting available to the public so that when you read the minutes, you can go back and review the video of the council meeting so you can hear exactly what everybody says when they say it and how they say it. So to kind of keep things from getting taken out of context. So we've been working with our IT department, and the videos are now available on the city's YouTube channel. So starting March 13th, those videos are available on the City of Hemet YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, type in City of Hemet, the videos are available for the council meetings.
It still would be helpful to have the issues in the minutes.
Okay.
And you make a short description.
Okay, well, we did that in an attempt to reduce the workload of the city clerk, to make her more available for requests and to do her job better and to lighten her load, so that things would not be as far behind. But- Right, yeah, and so we corrected that. Okay? So you don't have any disagreement with the way the minutes are?
Yes, I do.
Well, okay.
I think there ought to be a short description of the subject that people speak of.
Okay. All right, thank you. With that, we need to either approve these minutes or send them back for... Pardon? We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So there's that. Before we take a vote on item 5, can I get a motion to approve the balance of the...
Sure, I'll move to approve the items that were not pulled off of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, please vote. Okay, the rest of those passed unanimous. Okay, what is your purview on item 5 based on the comment from the public?
Can I talk to that?
Sure.
Okay. I think, I do agree with Marie on the way the minutes are done. And we had this discussion before, and I know we came to full agreement that we would do action items. But through this, I think one of the things we're losing is the topic that the people from the public bring to us. And if we could just change that so that it's the person's name and the topic, and then if the city manager or staff is to get back to them, that we then report back on those at the next meeting, and just having that somewhere in the minutes brings it to our attention and reminds us that there is an issue from someone in the public, and we do need to respond to it, even though we may not respond at a council meeting, but we need to know that it has been followed up on, whether it's by the city manager or by staff. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us that it's there. That would be my only suggestion.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need to bring that back as a future agenda item to discuss that and change that.
And I think that would still fall under an action item because it's not giving the detail. The detail can be pulled up on the video.
Right.
And
Right, it's just the subject matter that needs to be there, I think.
I don't think we need to bring it back. Why can't we just?
I think I can just take the consensus of the council and sit down with Sarah and work it out.
Thank you.
Very good.
If I might suggest one additional thing, you would have the speaker's name, who spoke from the public, and the topic, and oftentimes there'll be a very quick reaction, like we'll direct the speaker to meet with the staff representative who's in council chambers, and so I think a brief notation along those lines, because it doesn't necessarily have to be something reported back. It's an issue that the speaker was directed to speak with the appropriate staff representative, and then you'd have a more complete picture of what action was taken. So in that sense, it would be an action item.
Yeah.
Or an action agenda.
Very good.
Action minutes. That's what I'm trying to say.
So, Mr.
So-
City Manager, you have direction to make those changes to the agenda?
And I think it gives us a good memory jogger too when we're reviewing the minutes. And if someone wants to go back and view the YouTube video of the meeting, then it would help be kind of a light post of guiding them to which specific meeting they want to look at.
I think too, by keeping it still part of the action minutes, that we don't need a verbatim of everything. Just, okay.
Absolutely. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9.
Oh, that's you, Chief.
Good
So my question is, who's doing this now? The training, a training coordinator and police personnel for that?
Traditionally, this job has been done by various people. One time it was actually done by a sworn police lieutenant. Right now, it's currently being done by an office specialist confidential who's being paid out of class salary for her extra work that she's doing.
I forgot what else I was going to ask.
This specific job isn't necessarily going to be filled right now. I'm going to be bringing it forward as part of my budget package for reorganization. So this is just approving the job and the classification and the salary range that it would be at.
Okay, thank
No
you.
cost right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And real quick, this is going to help reduce your overall budget because it's going to add
Yes,
or eliminate a person?
my best guesstimation right now is you will see a reduction.
Perfect.
It may not be very large, but it will be a reduction.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
I just have one quick question also on that. Since this is not a sworn safety position, so there'll be savings in CalPERS and workers' comp
Yeah, those are the big
compared
ticket
to having
items.
an officer do it.
Yeah, it's considerably less when you look at the full package for a non-sworn than a sworn.
And I read through the job description. They're going to have a significant knowledge of post-training and accreditation and all of that. But you're confident that a non-sworn civilian level position can do that?
Yes, I believe so. And you're absolutely correct. Post is continually changing regulations all the time. That's one reason we really need someone dedicated specifically to that task that can manage that whole system, because it's something that we can get in big trouble for if we fall behind the curve.
Well, I certainly agree with the concept of having a dedicated person do that because of those changes and because of the complexity of scheduling post-accredited training, which all the officers have to comply with. So it makes really good sense to have a dedicated person doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? With that, what do you want to do?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, please vote. Okay, that passes unanimous. Item 10.
Good evening. So, I want to talk about the traffic signal maintenance because I remember that a while ago, maybe about a year ago, when there were some issues, and we talked about who does the maintenance, the cost of the maintenance, and again, at that time, it was $30,000.
Right.
And now we're looking at $130,000. So what happened between the scope of work from before, from last year, to the scope of work today?
So, great question, and I wish I had a better answer, but I will lay everything out for you. We have had, our current vendor has been servicing us for quite some time. When we came to council a year ago, what we had done was we had opened up our new fiscal year with a blanket purchase order for $30,000 in hopes of getting out to bid, because it has been a while since we've renewed the contract and went after competitive pricing. So when we were here last time, we were actually doing the exact same thing. At that time, I think we were taking it from $30,000 to $100,000. That was the request at the last time we had this in front of you. So what has happened in the meantime? We've been working on the specifications. The challenge has been staff turnovers, and I'm not an engineer. My staff that oversees this contract is not an engineer. We've needed a traffic engineer or someone from engineering to take a look at this.
Totally agree with that.
So we've had some changes. We have a nice solid bunch now that has finally helped us out, and we're just about ready to go out to bid. Unfortunately, we had that time expanse happen again. So we started again this year with a $30,000 blanket purchase order. Our normal preventative maintenance, which in terms of traffic signal maintenance is basically a monthly inspection of each of our 41 intersections. They're checking wiring, they're looking at timing, checking the cabinets. The bigger piece of the puzzle, and you've heard me say it before, I think we've got car magnets in our streetlight poles and in our traffic signal poles, because we have had a rash of people running into these poles. So the other piece that they do is replacement of traffic signal poles, and we have accidents or pedestals. We've had a few of those. The other piece of the puzzle that we've had quite a few, I've had many calls on weekends, is when SCE has a power surge or something happens and it sends our lights into flash, and we're calling them out after hours. So a little embarrassed to be kind of Groundhog's Day up here with this one more time, but we are in a position where we're going to get this out to bid. This will get us caught up. We have outstanding invoices right now. The vendor has been incredibly responsive, and they're waiting for payment. The only way for us to get this right is to be able to extend through the end of the year. We just got our comments back, I think, a couple days ago from engineering, so we're ready to put that out to bid quick.
Does this service also include the timing of the lights? By getting them synced like they're supposed to be?
They don't establish the timing, but what they do is they verify that the timing that has been established by a traffic engineer is what is occurring at the lights. So they aren't the ones that decide, but they are the ones that make sure that it's happening like it's supposed to.
And the decision is made by who?
Is via a consultant or a traffic engineer, somebody who has expertise in that timing based on whether it's an arterial and the speeds and all of the different pieces that go into it.
I won't ask you any more traffic questions because I have a few. And it's kind of a sore subject, so I'll let some other council member ask a few questions and maybe they'll address it.
Having sat on traffic commission for a few years, this does not pertain to the lights as you travel east and west on Florida Avenue, correct?
That's correct. The lights on Florida are maintained by Caltrans.
Does it in fact cover the traffic signals going north and south that cross Florida Avenue?
So the intersections themselves, all four corners, are maintained by Caltrans on Florida Avenue. So the intersections that we're talking about are along Stetson, Sanderson, Acacia, Lyon, those kinds of things.
Okay. I thank you. I appreciate that because I just want to put my anger towards Caltrans where it's needed.
Okay, thank you. Much appreciated.
Chris, question on the signal controllers themselves. I am guessing that we have a variety of ages of signal controllers. Some may be more robust than others as far as programming options. Would that be a fair assumption?
We would have to assume that together because I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But it is information that I'd be happy to find out and provide back to you. Yes, that was my
That's not really necessary. I guess what I would be looking for in the scope of work would be any recommendations coming forward about signal controllers that might be in need of enhancements or refurbishing with newer equipment and with a greater list of options for programming.
And that would probably fall more on the engineering side. Some of the things that we have done is we've done rewires. I mean, obviously the wires get out there. Ants get into them. You wouldn't believe what chaos those little guys can cause. So those types of things. But when you're talking about kind of restructuring or putting new equipment into use, it's really for a traffic engineer to make those decisions on. So.
But in the scope of their assessment and maintenance of the signals themselves, if they were to discover that one of the issues, or maybe it's a recurring problem that they keep coming out for, could be more effectively and efficiently addressed by upgrading the controller.
Absolutely. They pass that information on to us for sure. Yeah. And then, again, we team up with engineering to take a look at making those changes. So.
Because I think that would be a more robust level of service from from the contractor to make those kinds of recommendations where they come across.
Sure.
And so we currently are recruiting for the traffic engineer?
I don't believe that we have a traffic engineer position. I believe we are in the middle of a recruitment for a principal engineer. Is that,
Have we ever had a traffic engineer?
yes.
Any other questions of staff?
How long has it been since we've had a traffic engineer?
I believe our last traffic engineer, when she left and went to RCTC, that was the last time we had a traffic engineer. So probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer.
Something to work on. Definitely something to work on.
I'll make a note of it.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Please vote. All right, that passes 5-0.
Thank you, council.
Item 11.
Item 11, the award design professional services, engineering services. And it claimed that COZAD was the lowest bid, but the report reflected that KWC was the lowest bid. So how did...
So if I may, absolutely. So this was a request for proposals.
Right.
So while the language in the staff report, and I actually caught that this afternoon, that it was a little deceiving, a request for proposals is not, the award is not just based on the lowest price. There are other evaluation criteria. And so the proposals we received were reviewed by 2 in our engineering department, and then also our water and wastewater superintendent and supervisor. And based on the qualifications, the knowledge of our city and our systems, as well as the pricing, COZAD was selected as the most qualified responsive bidder for this.
Well, thank you for that clarification. And I only brought it up because it indicated in the staff report that it was the lowest bid. So, but I appreciate the clarification. And
I apologize.
Nothing against COZAD and Fox.
Right. We, I think that as we were writing the staff report, you know, we write so many of these that sometimes there's just kind of standard words you tend to use, and I missed that one when I reviewed it, so I apologize.
All right. Just one clarification. Thank you. I'll move to approve. Second.
Please vote. All right, that passes 5-0.
Thank you,
13.
council.
Item 13.
Yes, I had a couple questions on this name change. So reading the staff report, this will be the third name of the street, I believe. And was this driven more by the residents? What was the principal motivating issue?
From what I understand, it was from the Riverside Corporation, and it was in an order to change the whole negative type of connotation that went with the whole area. And it changes really to the name of the development. The name of the development is Greystone Lane, Greystone, so that changes it to the Greystone Lane.
Okay.
It seems to have a direct connection with that.
So in the process of making this, doing the research and making this recommendation, did staff reach out to all the residents on the street and let them know that this was something being proposed or considered or coming to council?
There is a certain process that the building official takes, and that's by sending it to the police department and fire department. I have to refer to my notes. So sorry to tell you. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
So in terms of, for this neighborhood, because it's existing, but Greystone, as you may recall, bought up many of the units through the NSP program, so there really weren't any people living there, they were refurbished, and then they had new tenants. So during that process, that name change and those new addresses were established. There were about 4 of the fourplexes that were not part of Greystones, but were on that street. So the process is they are notified of the potential for the address change and the street name change, and have the opportunity to come to the Traffic and Parking Commission if they have any concerns, which there wasn't. So what actually has happened now is that the addressing has gone into place, but the street name was never recorded with the county. So in order to bring that all current, so that any of the maps that you may look at Google Maps or anything else would show the correct street name as opposed to Mobley.
Okay, well, you already answered the next question I was coming to, and that's notification of all the delivery services like Postal Services, UPS and FedEx, and then all of the electronic mapping folks.
Yes.
Because so many people rely on electronic mapping and GPS now.
Yes, that's why it is when you're changing a street name of an existing street with existing structures and residents, it is quite a process. And so we do have to notify all those agencies.
Okay, thank you.
I will like to point out that about a little over a year ago, I went to Greystone's ribbon cutting grand opening, and I mean, let's be honest, that Mobley Lane had a stigma about it, and as Deanna alluded to, is that the Greystone company went in and bought up a lot of those properties except for 4, I think it was, and went in and completely rehabbed all of them, and now they provide low-income housing for that area, and they've cleaned that street up drastically, so I think this is a good thing for them.
My questions have been addressed. I move approval.
With that, I'll second that. Please vote. All right, that passes 5. Okay, we made it through the consent. Up next, communications from the public. Anyone who wishes to address the council regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. As a courtesy, please complete the request to speak form found at the city clerk's desk. Submit your completed form to the clerk prior to the beginning of this meeting. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes, and the Mayor Pro Tem will keep track of the time. In consideration of others, please come forward to the lecture when you get called up, and then you'll be recognized. Do we have our list? All right. We have several. Joey Astrobaum, you'll be up first, followed by Brian Hash. And you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council, and thank you to the concerned citizens of this good city. I'm here to speak in favor of State Senate Bill 54, the so-called sanctuary state law, because our city should make decisions based on what's best for our community instead of misinformation or fear. Opponents of the bill say they are concerned about public safety, but here are the facts. Our immigrant communities actually have a lower crime rate than non-immigrant communities, and studies show that local immigrants are less likely to report crime if local law enforcement is seen as a tool of federal immigration enforcement. SB 54 makes sure that local immigrants have a healthy working relationship with law enforcement, and that makes us all safer. The fear is that violent felons are somehow being released into our community. The reality is that SB 54 preserves the practice of law enforcement working with immigration officials when it comes to violent offenders. Without SB 54 in place, local law enforcement resources are needlessly spent doing the job of federal immigration. Don't we have enough of a problem with local crime without setting aside time and space to do the federal government's job? Our city respects the rule of law. The U.S. 7th Judicial Circuit upheld that requiring cities to work with immigrations and customs enforcement in order to receive federal grant money is, quote, unlawful and unconstitutional. The founders of our country understood that concentration of power threatens individual liberty. To protect us from tyranny, they created a separation of powers for the executive branch of the federal government to determine policy and then mandate it to state and local governments is unconstitutional, and SB 54 protects us from that. Unfortunately, politicians are using misinformation about the law as an opportunity for campaign publicity and to get votes. Instead, we trust the council will make decisions based on facts, constitutional principle, and what is safest for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brian Hash.
Mayor, Council, I'm Brian Hash. I'm Regional Ambassador for Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, and I have lived here for 10 years, and I have children that I love raising in this community. There are those here that are encouraging the Council to take a formal stance against SB 54, and it's troubling for many reasons. It disregards our shared values as Californians. It ignores a host of unknown implications that could result from our resources being subject to federal appropriations. If this body decides to stand against SB 54, it will not only put in jeopardy the lives of the undocumented in our community, but also their loved ones, neighbors, employers, employees, co-workers, and classmates. It will affect public health. It will affect public safety if the immigrant community will cease to report crimes in fear of being detained. It will affect school enrollment, therefore school revenue. It will affect the stability of our local economy and the future prosperity of the entire county. It will affect many residents' civil and human rights in ways we have yet to imagine. And we can't forget the financial burden that will be placed upon Hemet when the ACLU and other local immigrant rights groups comes at us with a lawsuit, like they've done in Los Alamitos as of late. I urge this council to stand with those of us who would like to keep intact the fabric of our great community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, Patrick Weiss. Patrick will be followed by, I'm probably going to mess this up, is it Jeannie?
Hi, Mayor, City Council. My name is Patrick Weiss. Oh, did I interrupt you?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. I'm here to speak on behalf of SB 54, the state sanctuary law. I think it's important that the state have control over our citizens in California, and especially when it comes to the resources. We don't have the resources to help the federal government round up suspected immigrants, and it takes away from our local police departments and other jurisdictions that are involved in law enforcement. The baseline of this, of course, is that the immigrants have always come under attack at one time or another in the United States. Coming from an Irish background, the Irish also were attacked and disliked when they first started coming into our country in large numbers. So I believe the motive of not wanting to have SB 54 here is one of hate, ignorance, racism, and fear, and also ignorance. Immigrants have made this country. Immigrants have made our country great. And without immigrants, we wouldn't be where we are today. They help our economy. They are our neighbors, our co-workers. They're in the military. And they have helped build our country. And I think to do this is for the council to consider going against SB 54 would jeopardize the community more than help it in the long run. It would divide people. It will not build community for Hemet. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie? And Jeannie will be followed by Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jean Rossiter. I am here tonight before you to ask that this council formally place SB 54 on their next meeting agenda. And I ask that the council adopt a resolution by opting out of SB 54. It is my understanding that you've already been presented with a copy of the resolution. And by doing a resolution, it's too late to file an amicus brief, so you would not be joining the lawsuit. Okay, the cost would be very little to do a resolution. And despite what you hear, SB 54 is not about race. We have two borders, Canada and Mexico. We have illegal aliens that come to this country and enter illegally from more than 100 countries. SB 54 is about tying the hands of law enforcement agencies and taking away their ability to communicate about dangerous, illegal, transnational criminals, the worst of the worst. SB 54 absolutely violates the Constitution and federal law and does not violate the 4th or the 10th Amendment. Had we not had multiple communication with other agencies during what happened in 9/11, can you imagine how much worse that would have been for everybody, because our agencies are not allowed to talk to each other. Catching and releasing dangerous illegal aliens and placing them back in the community is dangerous to everyone. The duty of the City Council is the first line of defense for protection of their citizens, then the county, the state, and the federal. It is federal law that decides immigration law, not the states, not the county. Again, adopting a resolution does not mean you have joined the lawsuit. There will not be, you are not part of that, but you are standing up for the Constitution and for the oath that you took to uphold and swore to protect the citizens of this country, this county, and this city. Attorney Jeff Sessions said in March during his visit to California and his lawsuit that all cities must show proof that they opted out of SB 54 or risk losing any federal money. And you can look that up and you can Google it, because he did say that. Also, too, this gentleman was talking about the funding. Those are federal funds because it's federal law. Those are not state funds that are going to the police agencies. The federal is picking up that bill. And we want to do the best that we can do, because we don't know who's coming across that border. It could be anyone. We've seen recent terror attacks in Canada and everywhere. We live in dangerous times. We have to offer the best protection we can for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Percival and City Council members. Thank you for this second opportunity to talk on SB 54, and thank you for your thoughtful consideration during this time, this process that's heated with emotion and rhetoric on both sides. I'd like to first start out by a little background information. In 1956, my in-laws legally immigrated to New Mexico, Arizona, and then to Ventura County from Chihuahua, Mexico. They did this legally using the visa system, green cards, and work permits, all of which. My father-in-law was a longtime bracero in this country throughout the Southwest, and he worked until the day he retired in the farming industry, working his way up from a hired hand in Arizona, outside of Wilcox, to driving truck for farmers in Oxnard in the strawberry and produce business. What we're asking only is to obey the rule of law. Sanctuary state law is patently unconstitutional. And we have to decide whether we are going to be a state and a people that are ruled by the rule of law or by unconstitutional edicts generated out of Sacramento. We seem to be filled with emotion rather than a sense of right and wrong. We have laws in place. If the laws need to be changed, there is a process. First and foremost, amendments to the Constitution. As I stated last time I was here, that this is a constitutional process. We have articles in the Constitution that state who is in charge of determining immigration policy and where that comes from. And it doesn't come from Sacramento or Jerry Brown. It comes from D.C. and from our constitutional form of government. We are a republic, not a democracy, a republic, and we are governed by the rule of law. If the Constitution needs to be changed for immigration issues, then there is a path. We have a path through the amendment process. What we're doing here is we're allowing the rule of law and the basis for our country to be trampled on. So my request is that you thoughtfully consider this proposal and come to a decision based on rule of law and what is right for the citizens of Hemet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, Michael Rossiter, followed by Andrew Kutyak. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, City Council, citizens of Hemet, my name is Mike Rossiter. I'm a Navy Vietnam veteran. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I believe all of you have taken an oath very similar to that. I know the gentleman wearing the badges and whatnot took that same oath. My oath has no expiration date. Does yours? People take oaths, and most of them think they're just rattling off some words. An oath is a solemn promise, and you have to think about that. The same thing when you pledge allegiance to the flag. To most people, it's just something they learned when they were in grade school, and they went up from there. Pledge. Look up the word pledge. We are a constitutional republic, a democratic republic, but a republic. It is a nation that is built on laws. Now, either we're going to be a law-abiding community and support laws. We don't get to pick and choose which ones we want to support today, and then tomorrow, well, maybe not so much. Unlike Sacramento, which is coming up with more screwball stuff than you can shake a stick at. It's SB 54 is a violation of the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, which is the supreme law of this land. And I realize you can find an attorney someplace, I'm not saying this attorney, but you can find an attorney someplace that would love to turn all that around on some certain little words or where a comma is placed. You read the thing as it is stated, and a second grader can tell you what it means. I hope you take this item up on your agenda, and I hope you opt out and do the resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Andrew.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've handed out a petition list here of Hemet residents that I asked not to come tonight. These are all that have signed the petition and are in support of opposing SB 54. The number is growing to date. And why I think with all of this is that this is vitally important and that we're under attack. Now, it's not just SB 54. And I wish that all of these people that are signing this petition rallied with AB 109, but we are at the state level. And our public safety is SB 54. The first paragraph, you can read it. It limits communication between our law enforcement and the federal, period. You look through that, and it goes on further to identify limitations and safe zones. Not just for children, it's not for families, any illegal aliens. It includes all the criminal ones that are out there. We're under attack with decriminalization. We've seen it already with 109, 47, 57. And inside of this also, there was an adjustment with the amount of time for a felony at the state level. From over 365 days to under. And why? If there's an illegal alien that's released and serves over 365 days, they're deported. So this adjusts automatically below that at 364 days, so they're not. After they've been a felon and were incarcerated. Think about that. Who this is protecting, what freedoms this is. And recently, right, in Sacramento, we just heard about AB 2943, which is challenging the Bible language. Where is this going to stop? This is why we're seeing activists come together. I wish it was 109, but this is why people are coming together now and making a stand. The craziness has got to stop, and the local control has got to start. Starting here, starting with you, starting with all of us to stand for it. San Jacinto, we are hearing it is on our agenda at the next council meeting. Yucaipa just voted last night. Beaumont last week. Elsinore is tonight. This is something our supervisors should be supporting. This is something our sheriff should be supporting, and is not. I'm proud to say that one of our past Hemet Blue that is campaigning for sheriff does support this, and this is a very important issue. And it is bipartisan, and I know this is not supposed to be a bipartisan seat. But this is, when it comes to our values, it comes to our public safety, the pressure that we're under. Our law enforcement now, there's no 3 strikes, you're out.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for this time. I look forward. I'm glad it's on your agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next, Mary Ann, followed by Jim Welker. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, council. So I was asked not to talk about water anymore by someone important, so I won't. But I do want to talk about tonight about there has been a considerable notice of all of the motels and hotels that we have on Florida and what goes on in them. So what's happening is we're trying to clean up our city, right? So we've really been doing a great job in doing that. However, a few of these motels, what I've learned, and hotels, is that the owners of them don't even live in this country, particularly one that I found. So they're not really caring what's happening at their establishment because they don't live here. So as long as they take their money, or as long as the police don't show up too many times, or there's too many children left behind, or people dying, or drugs, they're good with that. However, what we've seen is now is that we are just basically moving the crime around. So we can clean it up on the streets, but then they go to these hotels and these motels and they hide. So then they're hiding in there, and then we're just moving them from room to room, from space to space.
Let me remind you that you're supposed to be addressing.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be addressing you. Well, I know, but you know what? They care too. I'm just saying.
They can hear.
So anyway, they're moving from. You didn't like the back of my head. Okay. So anyway, they're just moving around. So we're basically just moving them around, and we're really not doing anything to help the issue. Now, we always come up with problems, right? But we never quite give you guys the solution. So my solution to this is that if we started to crack down on our hotels and motels, because another very important person pointed out that we have a lot in this city, and we never really understood why, except if you go back in history, this was a city where people would come to vacation. And so hence why we have so many hotels and motels. A lot of them, from listening to the department where
the Publics Department is where some of them may not even have any kind of history or documentation because they've been here since the 1950s and 60s. So there really isn't probably anything written on them. But if we could start by going to them and making sure that they are up to code, that everything is above what the city is required for them to do, and start there, then maybe that might get them to realize that the city cares about who's staying in these establishments and who's paying the money, because people want to come here. And I actually ate breakfast this morning at a local restaurant, and the little girl that waited on me said that a lot of the snowbirds are starting to leave because that's what they do and they all go back home. But some of them that she's known for years, she's grown up here, aren't coming back. This is their last year. Am I done?
Thank you.
Okay.
Jim Walker. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I am Jim Welker. Mr. Mayor, for 8 years, the financial status of this community has been hidden from the people. Bring back the state auditor to finish the audit. Have the off-books accounting incorporated into the state audit. Post the results of the audit. Balance this city's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I want to thank the speakers and the guests for your decorum and letting and respecting the other people speak and voice their opinions, even if they were opposed here. So I want to thank you all for that. Up next, we have public hearing item number 16, draft community development block grant 2018-19 action plan. Good evening.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Council reviewed and accepted the ad hoc committee recommended CDBG 2018-19 projects and funding on March 13th, 2018. The 30-day public noticing period began March 23rd and ended April 23rd, stating the draft annual action plan was available for public review and comments. Those council-approved projects and funding limits are listed in the draft annual action plan, which has been posted to the city website and available for public review. During this 30-day public review period, no comments were received. The funding total is $880,464, which includes $128,219 of previously unexpended funds. The requested council actions tonight are to conduct the public hearing of the draft CDBG annual action plan, then to authorize the city manager to sign the signature page of the application for federal assistance SF 424 and execute the non-state government certifications required for submission of the 2018-19 final annual action plan, and to submit the final annual action plan and application for federal assistance to HUD for their review and consideration. Mayor Percival, that's all I have for this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know the ad hoc committee put in a good effort on this, and there's only limited funds to be spread around, and I think they did a great job. This is a hearing item, so I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. I do have one speaker that filled out a request to speak, and that's Mary Jo Ramirez. Are you here? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. It's great to see all of you. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of Caravan Transit although I'm the executive director for another nonprofit, I have worked very diligently with Caravan from its founding in 1994. And I just wanted to remind the City Council that Caravan's coming to its 25th anniversary in 2019. And we're just very, very pleased that you've continued to support this wonderful transformation